It's the Full Court Press with Eric Frandsen and Jason Walker.
Welcome back to the to the show that we're doing right now.
Following the local teams, breaking down the biggest games with in-depth analysis and team interviews.
There's going to be much higher expectations, sense of awareness of what we bring to the table.
Join the show by calling into 435-752-1069 or text 435-339-0321. It's the Full Court Press.
Throws, ends yes! Caught! Touchdown! They did it!
Hello, happy Monday, happy President's Day. Eric Frandsen and Jason Walker with you here on the Full Court Press. A lot of things to unpack from what happened over the weekend. Big week this week as well for a lot of different things. We got high school basketball. Playoffs are now set. They begin tomorrow. We need to react to what happened on Saturday in Fort Collins for Utah State men's basketball. Another big showdown tomorrow in the Spectrum. A little bit later on in the show, we'll be talking softball. New softball head coach Todd Judge will be coming in and joining us, talk about their young season so far and how things are going for them. And, of course, if you want to weigh in on any of these topics, love to hear from you as well on our Full Court Press text line, 435-339-0321 to chime in on the show today.
The topic of the day, I think, especially for the text line, since it's President's Day, which president was the best at sports?
Which president was the best at sports? Wow, that's an interesting question.
Yeah. Or if anybody has met one of the U.S. presidents, feel free to drop that. Flex on everyone else in the chat. Because I've never met any sitting or former U.S. president.
Yeah, I've never had that privilege. We've got a former president who was involved in an ownership group of a professional sports team.
Wait, which one is that?
That's George W. Bush.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the Rangers. That's all I know.
I saw a short video the other day about presidents and how many baseball games they attend. Like, they were ranking them by how many baseball games they had attended during their presidency. And I think George W. Bush was pretty up there.
Imagine he would be. He's a big baseball fan.
Yeah, like I said, he was a baseball fan. And there are others who are up there as well, especially if they were up in that, New York or New England area. A lot of them were like, they'd go to games in New York, especially like way back in the early 20th century. There's some there, too, because baseball's old. You get these presidents from, like, the 1800s. Like, oh, yeah, they went to baseball games because it's been around for 200 years.
It's a very old sport. Well, let's get started with I know there's a lot to cover today. We even have some interesting comments regarding the NBA All-Star Weekend.
Probably more interesting than the All-Star game itself.
Yes. But we'll try to squeeze that in part of the show today as well. But I think we have to start with the 20-point loss, shellacking, drubbing, whatever other adjective you want to use, to what happened to Utah State in Fort Collins on Saturday, losing 75-55 in what should have been a really big game for USU, and it wasn't for them.
Yeah, they just laid an egg. This is a team that's had problems with hustle in an incredibly frustrating way because that was part of their identity, their hustle and toughness. That's who they were. Like, that's what we expected from them. That's what we were getting from this team. And suddenly you look at probably 4 of their last 5 games. I don't think that hustle was there. I think Boise State, you got all, anything you wanted and more. That team showed up and beat the tar out of Boise State. And at least in terms of physicality and on the scoreboard, it looked that way. You win by 19 or whatever it was. San Diego State, some of the physicality was there, but they couldn't hit a shot worth a darn. But then with Nevada, Wyoming for a lot of that game, and especially against Colorado State, it just wasn't there. And you saw improvements in the second half in the Wyoming and Colorado State games, but even then it's like With Wyoming, yeah, you beat them when you played 20 minutes of that game when you beat them because it's Wyoming. They're down there in the standings. You're supposed to beat them. And with Colorado State, yeah, you only play one half, and yeah, you're gonna get a tongue lash. You're gonna get that beat down because in the second half, they only lost the second half 32-29. If you'd have played only the second half, this would have been a narrow defeat.
Right, respectable.
But you don't play the first half. You don't set the tone. You let them come out and punch you in the mouth. You let them, what was the stat? I think offensive rebounds. The first 8 shots, first 7 or 8 shots that Colorado State field goal attempts that they missed, they grabbed offensive rebounds on all but one of them. So it was either 6 or 7 offensive rebounds, and they'd missed 7 or 8 shots. That is appalling. And it's just an effort thing. You don't give up that high of an offensive rebounding percentage unless you're just not trying out there.
14 offensive rebounds to Colorado State to USU's 8. 31 defensive rebounds to the Rams to the Aggies 24.
Yeah.
Largely that's effort. You're right. I mean, we were touting Utah State's advantages with their low post play in their games against heading into Wyoming and again heading into Colorado State, but it was the opponent's low post play that was more aggressive and was more active and created more opportunities for themselves, not USU.
Yeah,
a little surprising.
Well, and a lot of that offensive rebound, funnily enough, when you're getting that many offensive rebounds, a lot of it comes down on the guards as far as them getting those defensive rebounds. And you've been seeing it from guys like Darius Brown, who'd kind of quietly been averaging 8 rebounds a game over a 4 or 5 game stretch. Mason Falslev averaging, 5 or 6. Ian Martinez averaging 4 or 5 or 6. All of them were rebounding really well. And that's where, there's a shot near the rim where they're especially on a 3-pointer and all the bigs are boxing each other out, and it goes instead of, falling inside the key or, near the restricted area, it's going in that middle area or even out toward the 3-point line. And that's where and sometimes it'll cream out there and there's nothing you can do about it. Where, it's just a bad luck off, bad bounce. But most of the time, when it's going there, you need to be able to rely on your guards to go out there and get the ball. And the Aggies weren't doing that. And again, it's frustrating because it's not like this is a season-long issue. It's a recent issue, which makes it all the more confusing, where this is a good defensive rebounding team that just got punked. You've got guards who have been good at rebounding. Darius Brown, he's been a good rebounder his whole career. He's averaging 4 rebounds a game as a 6'2" guard for his whole career. Mason Falslev, he's shown he's a good rebound. Ian Martinez, Great Osborne's a good rebounder. I've called Isaac Johnson the best defensive rebounder on the team. Khalif Lasacco's no slouch. All these guys are theoretically good rebounders, and they just go out there and just don't do it.
I mean, Great still had 13 on the day, but
but when you only have 26 as a team?
Yeah, only one out of 1 rebound for Mason Falslev total. That was a defensive rebound. Darius Brown had 1 rebound. That was Mason's was an offensive rebound, and Darius had a defensive rebound. So 2 rebounds between the 2 of those guys. Very uncharacteristic for how they normally play and impact a game.
Yeah, and that's where you get frustrated by these games, and you end up getting more frustrated about them than you really should, because this 20-point loss is not the end-all, be-all. Is it the worst loss as far as point differential? Because New Mexico was 13, San Diego State was 17 or 18.
As far as point differential,
I think it might be the worst as far as point differential.
It might be up there, yeah.
Maybe Nevada might actually be it. It's up there in the high teens as well.
Nevada was 14.
Oh, really? Okay, so it's probably the worst as far as point differential. Although, to be honest, I don't think this loss was as bad as the Nevada one or even the New Mexico one. It didn't feel as bad as the New Mexico one. So, you get more frustrated with this mostly because of high expectations. This is a team that's in first, and when you see a team that's in first and playing that well play this badly, you tend to shift toward overreacting. So you got to be careful analyzing this game and realizing that, hey, it's more than a one-off because you've had several games like this, but that's what every college basketball team has. They've had a lot of bad games. They have not had a lot. They've had some bad games, but a lot of good games as well. So the key for Utah State is just getting back to where they've been before, and I think that's where Danny Sprinkle is. He pulled his team back and they played well against Boise State. Then they've had a couple of iffy ones. They're late in the season. They're tired. They need another kick in the pants. Probably getting one this week. And they're going to hopefully come back against San Diego State. Win or lose, you want to see them play hard. So that's where they just need to get back to.
Yeah, this kind of this has me a bit nervous that we might see a similar 2-game stretch like we saw just a few weeks ago. Lose on the road by double digits. Then you come home, and then you lose in your next home game by double digits again. This is the last Saturday, they lost on the road by 20. And on Tuesday, they've got another good team coming into town who is be very eager to beat up on Utah State once again. So I'm a little concerned about that. The last 30 days, Utah State is 5-4. All 4 of those losses are by double digits. Not in any of those losses were they close competitive games.
Yeah.
The opponent walked away and had Utah State in the rearview mirror for much of the second half.
Yeah, and that's just Utah State needing to learn to set the tone better in these big games where when they have gone out and set the tone, then they're successful. But like you said, there have been a lot where they haven't, and they've all been in the last month when this team is really beginning to feel the effects of a long season. Talk about a lot of these guys, at least several of them haven't played full seasons as starter minute guys, even high starting minutes. Guys like Osibor, Martinez, Falslev, like 3 of your starters have never played a season. Isaac Johnson too is 4 of your starters. Darius Brown's the only guy who's played this far into a season and been the starter the whole time and playing a lot of minutes. So it's something that they've got to learn, and it's part of being a veteran team. They're losing to veteran teams. They're losing to guys like Colorado State, a team full of seniors. Nevada, a team full of seniors. San Diego State, they've got a lot of senior leadership as well. Boise State, they're a little younger. So it's something they've got to learn. They got to grow up fast. Because, Daniel Sprinkle says it over and over, they're not good enough to win off their talent.
435-339-0321 for those who want to chime in on the show today. Got a number of texts coming through on the Full Court Press text line. 5822, Gerald Ford played college football, so here's my vote.
Yeah, he's probably the first thoughts come to mind. You think of like Gerald Ford, Teddy Roosevelt, Dwight Eisenhower. Either guys who are like in the Army or like, both of them were in the Army, Roosevelt and Ford. So
yeah,
they're probably athletic, but of course Ford actually played the sports. So
yeah,
I don't know if Roosevelt and Eisenhower actually played the sports.
Teddy Roosevelt was
he's more of a hunter.
Yeah, he was very accomplished and athletic in other ways. He was an adventurer.
Yeah.
I don't know if he played.
It wasn't like
formal sports.
Yeah, he did hunting and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So an athletic guy.
9315 texting in. Had a text before the show. USU basketball has exceeded what I thought they would from the beginning of the season, but games like this last one at the Rams drives me nuts. I can see not winning, but it's the way we lost that I'm frustrated about. And now that my expectations have changed away games, even though they may not win them. At the beginning of the season, feel the team, thought Full Court Press Nation. Or change the name to Danny Sprinkle Press. Not sure I fully grasped the last part of that text. Then is the tip worse, or is it better to try and grab the rebound, like tipping the rebound out and hope your player gets the ball?
On offensive rebounds, you see that a lot where you just tip it out. You see a lot of bigs do that. Nevada did it several times where a big guy will just get up there because the defensive players, they're trying to grab it. That's their job. Grab the ball because most of the times you're going to have more of your defensive players concentrated toward the rim, facing the rim. Some of the offensive players may start backpedaling to prepare for transition defense, especially the guards. And so when you're an offensive player going for rebound, if you can't grab it outright, you smack it out there. And more often than not, like 60, 70, 80% of the time, one of your guards is just tracking it down Because all the defenders, they're not, it's like when you miss a three-pointer long, it's probably just going to end up bouncing to one of the offensive players because that's where they are. The defenders are not there. So if you're a defensive player, don't tap the rebound to somebody else. There's some situations where it works. Usually that's when you tap it sideways along the baseline and you see your teammate right there and he's wide open. But usually defenders trying to grab it, offensive players, if they can't grab it, they tip it back into the backcourt.
Yeah. Yeah. The Aggies just seem to be out of place, out of position, or just not quite where they needed to be quick enough in the game at Colorado State.
I said it's hustle. It's so much of that. Like, you look at Colorado State, their offense, where you think, okay, you got to watch out for Isaiah Stevens and Clifford and the 3-point shooting and all this perimeter stuff with Colorado State. What did they do in that first half? They formed a layup line. 17 of their first 23 shot attempts were layup or dunks. Like, that's unacceptable.
Yeah.
Like, unless they're shooting like 1 for 17 and you're just defending literally everything, they can't make anything. You can't be giving up that many layup attempts because every coach, you ask him, if you could have one shot on every possession, they say, I want a layup. Doesn't matter how good of a 3-point shooting team. You ask last year's Aggies, so you ask Ryan Odom from last year with his team, like number 1 3-point shooting team in the nation by percentage and on high volume. Would you rather have an open 3-pointer or a layup? He'd say layup every time.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so when you're giving up layups over and over and over again, at some point that's a hustle thing because obviously you're going to give up some layups and you're going to contest some layups. But if they feel comfortable enough, they only have to take 6 jump shots in the first 15 minutes of the game, you've done something wrong.
Let's see, 8968 texting in. It's too bad that the Aggies are playing their worst basketball of the year. The bubble has popped. Guess we can scratch the national foe this year. Scratch the national? I'm not sure I follow that. But, Utah State's, I think you can make an argument that they're in a stretch now where it's they've struggled more than at any other time of the year, for sure. I mean, as we said, the last 30 days, they're 5-4.
Yeah, well, and still, a lot of other teams in the Mountain West are probably 5-4, 6-3, even 4-4, have a losing record in the last month. The Aggies aren't alone. They're just not clearly the top team in the Mountain West.
But this is the jaws, the teeth of what we said a few weeks ago. They're going into a 6-game stretch that will be brutal.
Yeah,
and in this 6-game stretch, they're 2-3.
Yeah, which is on the low end of what you were hoping for. And really, I think the biggest difference, the biggest regret for the Aggies is going to be that Nevada game. Because you win that, suddenly you're 3-2. You have a chance to be, talking about 3-3. That was kind of the minimum hope where you feel like you came out of it all right. 4-2 was the ideal, and obviously anything above that was spectacular. They are at risk of going 2-4, which is, I can't remember exactly what I said, but I imagine it would have been something along the lines of that would probably lose them the chance at winning the Mountain West regular season title. But we've been saying it for weeks that the Aggies are very likely still going to go to the NCAA tournament. Even if
they're still going to go.
If they lose to San Diego State and they lose to New Mexico, and they'll probably very likely end up beating Fresno and Air Force and San Jose State. And as long as they win one game in the conference tournament, they're pretty much set to go. They've done enough to show people. They'll fall. They've been considered as high as a 6 seed, borderline 5 seed. They'd fall down to being a 10 or an 11 seed, but they'd still get in. So again, we've been saying it over and over. The Aggies are playing for a Mountain West championship and seeding in the tournament. Right now, they're kind of losing both battles, going in the wrong direction in both. But they are still very much above their preseason expectations. But of course, that really doesn't fly too much anymore with fans. They have raised expectations now. They've seen what this team can be. And again, that's why you get frustrated. Because it's not like the Aggies have just had a weakness that's been exploited the entire year and you just have to keep living with it. They're having a weakness that's showing up mid-season. That wasn't a weakness before. And that's why you get frustrated as a fan.
Utah State currently tied with San Diego State, still on top of the conference standings, both at 9-4 in conference play. Got to take a timeout here in the Full Court Press. When we come back, more reactions and analysis as to what happened on Saturday at Fort Collins and what else happened around the league, what other scores that took place, and what the other standings look like in the Mountain West Conference. That's next here on the Full Court Press.
By George! Daryl's Appliance Present Day Sale is a great time to buy appliances. This is Jay from Daryl's Appliance. Get the lowest price on Whirlpool, Maytag, and GE appliances and save an extra 10% on scratch and dent appliances. Interest-free financing available. Stop in to check out the presidential savings in the store on Whirlpool and KitchenAid appliances. Hurry, this sale ends soon. Daryl's west on Airport Road, open until 6 p.m. on weekdays, 5 on Saturday.
Elements has delicious lunch specials. Soup, salad, and bread for just $10 is tasty and quick. Elements lunch menu is full of scrumptious items. Wood-fired pizzas are an excellent choice that include barbecued chicken and the bee's knees. The fresh battered halibut fish and chips with seasoned fries is always a hit. And don't forget the fan favorite, Chipotle fried chicken sandwich. Thursdays, enjoy Elements house-made smoked brisket, casual or professional. Open Monday through Thursday, 11:30 to 8 p.m. and Friday and Saturday, 11:30 to 9. Visit theelementsrestaurant.com for reservations.
Don't get caught without power to your home or business. This is Tyler with Golden Spike Electric. We offer Generac backup generators to keep your home or business warm, avoiding frozen pipes, loss of valuable food, or even a flooded basement. Golden Spike Electric is certified and factory trained, so you know it will be installed right and properly maintained. Contact Golden Spike Electric so you'll never be without power again. Online at gsegenerators.com. We also service other brands, Golden Spike Electric and Generac. Power you can count on.
It's never too late or too cold to get rid of that old vehicle. Now is the time to earn extra cash by calling DD Auto and Salvage. Let them pay you for that junk vehicle. DD Auto and Salvage makes it so easy and fast to get rid of your junker vehicles by paying you the most money possible. Pickup is available. If you have metal, DD Auto and Salvage in Logan wants to pay you today. Call 787-1204.
That's 787-1204 today.
See store for details.
Many Aggie fans like to go to the game. Some fans love to yell at the TV, and all fans like to wear a shirt or a jacket with their favorite team's logo. Aggie fans find the best selection of USU logoed apparel at Locker 42. Find yourself an Aggie t-shirt for $10. Locker 42 features Aggie logoed hoodies, jackets, and golf shirts, and a hat wall with over 40 styles. Women's specific apparel, youth sizes for the junior Aggie, and toddler and infant Aggie items as well. Locker 42 is a store for Utah State fans by Utah State fans, and proud to be part of Aggie Nation.
The Full Court Press on Sports Talk Radio, 106.9 FM, 1390 AM. The Fan.
Welcome back to the Full Court Press. Eric Frandsen, Jason Walker. Trying to make sense of what happened in Fort Collins on Saturday. Utah State's on the wrong side of a 75-55 game, which was really USU's last chance to get a quality road win on the schedule, because and to impress the selection committee. Instead, Utah State comes home with a 20-point loss, their worst of the season.
Yeah, I think things are setting up to where if the Aggies, their high end was looking at a 5 or 6 seed, they're looking at maybe being in that 8, 9. I should say maybe, like some of those early 2000s Aggie teams would have killed for.
Yeah, they would have loved to see a single digit.
But again, that's where the disappointment at this point is about the fact that the Aggies had the rise set on some pretty high expectations, and they're beginning to falter and go back down closer to the preseason expectations we did have. Granted, I still set the cap at 20 wins, and I think they've broken that. Did they get to 21?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, their win over Wyoming.
Their Wyoming win pushed them over.
They've officially broken my hard cap on their win total. Maybe I should have told them, don't win any more games. Don't make me look bad on my radio show, guys.
Yeah, that's right.
I need you guys to win exactly 20 games. Don't go over the hard cap.
A couple more texts rolling in on the Full Court Press text line. 5822. Is the San Diego State game essentially for the regular season championship?
Yes and no, because and I actually asked Danny Sprinkle about this a little bit, and he went to the fact that there's everyone's gonna have like 3 or 4 more games after. Utah State I think has 4 more games. Some teams I think have 5, because the Aggies will get a bye this Saturday. Or
right?
Do we call it a bye or?
Yeah,
they get a week off, similar to what they had after I think like the previous San Diego State game.
No,
or was it between different games?
It was before the Boise game, after Fresno. And then before Boise, they had a midweek game.
The road Boise game.
Okay. Yeah.
So a yes and no in the sense that if Utah State wins, they'll jump back into first place and be alone in first place. And they'll have 4 games left against 3 of the 4 worst teams I think the bottom 3 teams.
The bottom
in the
3 teams.
Actually. And then New Mexico at home. Is it guaranteed they win it? Where it'd get a little iffy if they end up losing to New Mexico. It could get messy, but the Aggies would have the inside track.
Right.
If San Diego State wins, they are often sprinting to a Mountain West title, where they'd have a sweep over Utah State, and that'd obviously be one of the guys that could still tie them. And so they get the tiebreak over them. And then I think they've split with everybody else, split or swept everybody else in that top area.
This is San Diego State's end of the season schedule for them. After playing USU, they travel to Fresno on Saturday. They host San Jose. Then they travel to UNLV, and they finish at home hosting Boise State.
Yeah. It's not too dissimilar in difficulty to Utah State's schedule.
Not too challenging teams on the schedule versus one for USU.
It's probably slightly harder.
Yeah.
Mostly because UNLV is a little tougher than and Utah State goes to San Jose State instead of hosting them. But yeah, it pretty much is. It's about as de facto championship game as you can get when there's going to be 2 weeks left after this week. So the short answer is yes.
9315. My idea to fix the lackluster play: chase the team with a hot shot. If you have ever been shocked by one, make you run the minute you see someone come by you with one.
Hot shot? Are we talking like a cattle prod or something?
Yeah. That's might be a few violations if we try that.
For a second, I thought you were talking about the All-Star game.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a
topic for later.
That's a topic for another segment. 6543. What's the line on the game tomorrow? Our bigs really need to step it up tomorrow.
I don't know if they set lines this early. Let me look it up.
Yeah, good question. I don't know if it will be set for tomorrow. Usually, if you look ahead, it'll only show you for the day. ESPN matchup predictor has Utah State favored 53.3%. to San Diego State 46.7%.
I think any betting lines will probably favor San Diego State it'll either be even or San Diego State by a point or so. There's a chance the Aggies are favored by a point, but with the way San Diego State's playing right now, the fact the Aggies aren't playing super well, they obviously get some credit for it being at home and the fact they've generally played better at home.
Yeah.
Nevada game pretty much being the only exception. Then you could see the Aggies favor, but I would favor San Diego State in that game.
Okay, so 6543 points out our bigs really need to step it up tomorrow. So with Colorado State, it was another issue where the opposing team did a pretty good job of denying the pass to Great Osobor in the low post. So are teams just scouting Utah State better in cutting off angles and making it difficult, more challenging for the guards to get the ball to Great in the low post? Or is it this more of a deal where teams are understanding how to front or challenge Great a little better when to make it harder to get the pass to him?
I think part of it is that if there's because a lot of teams will try and ball deny certain players, and the easiest player to ball deny is a pure post-up guy. And especially with nobody else on the team really threatening scoring in some games. Like you look at that Colorado State game, like who else was making a shot? Like not really anybody. So you can more easily double team. You can help off of guys because you'll have guys standing in the corner, but you'll have a player fronting Osobor and then a guy hanging in behind, so if you try and lob it up, he can bother Osobor. He either misses a shot, passes it out, fumbles it, whatever. So the Aggies don't really have a counter to teams ball denying Osobor. That's the biggest problem, I think, offensively. It's not a fatal flaw so long as the Aggies aren't having a shooting night like they did against Colorado State or against San Diego State or against Nevada.
Right, because against Boise and Wyoming, Great kind of struggled in the low post, or they denied him opportunities, but it was other players who really stepped up and carried the water for a while.
Yeah.
Mason Falslev against Boise, Josh Aduje and Darius Brown against Wyoming. None of that really revealed itself or manifested against Colorado State.
It also doesn't help that, Osobor still got 13 shot attempts up, which is about the kind of volume you're wanting from him. But he only goes 6 of 13. And he didn't have a spectacular night on free throws either. So, Danny Sprinkle talked about this, I think, is either before or one of the press conferences from last week, either before and after Wyoming, or I think it might have been before Colorado State, where, I asked him about teams focusing on Osobor and maybe other guys stepping up. And he said, we have other guys step up, but a big thing is Osobor needs to just take it to these guys a little bit more. When he gets the ball, he needs to not turn it over. He needs to not have a bad pass. He needs to not have a poor shot attempt where, he doesn't go up maybe as strong as he should.
Right. He only had one personal foul.
Yeah.
And, if he could stand to be a little bit more aggressive, maybe he gets an offensive foul there. But more often than not, we're seeing he's the one that's getting fouled when he's aggressive at going to the rim.
Yeah. But I think a lot of teams have realized if they just wall up against Osobor, then if you wall up, keep your arms up, don't foul him, then that's where I think, you hope that he misses. Because Osobor hasn't had as great a touch around the rim this year as he did the rest of his career, where he was shooting like borderline 70% around the rim. This year he's not shooting as well. And so teams realize, okay, wall up, don't commit a foul, and you're probably not going to get beat by him that bad. And so that's what's happening. With Colorado State, he gets his, 15, 16 points, I think it was?
Yeah.
That's not going to beat anybody.
15 points.
Yeah. If he gets 30, that's when you start really worrying. That's where maybe he's dominating you. But that part of that, if he's getting that many points, it probably means you're fouling him too. So teams just wall up, don't foul, and you'll be fine. So at this point, most of the fouls Osobor is drawing is when he's fighting for position in the post and they foul him on the entry pass. He's not drawing as many shooting fouls. He's not drawing as many and ones. So some of this is on Osobor, and some of this is on other guys not taking advantage of the openings that are created when teams put so much effort into denying Osobor getting the ball.
Okay, so outside of Great, to lump in the other big men for Utah State, Isaac Johnson, Khalif Osako, Carson Templin. Between those three players, the Aggies got 4 points and 7 rebounds.
See, and offensively is not where I'd be as concerned about these guys, because Carson Templin, he's not really supposed to score. He's out there to hustle and rebound. Isaac Johnson, you do worry a little bit more about points because that's supposed to be his strengths, hitting some outside shots, slashing to the hoop, being a guy who can drive to the basket as a 7-footer, which can be a little scary. Attack closeouts essentially for him, or take advantage of a scrambling defense. So you're a little worried about him not scoring. And then Khalif Osako, again, he's kind of like Carson Templin. He's there to play defense and rebound. So it's not really the defense is where these guys are hurting, because that's not their role. You'd like to get, 8 to 10 points between those three on any given night, but you're not exactly, killing them over only getting 4. The problem that they're having is their defense, especially in the post. And then obviously rebounding. They're playing a big role in rebounding, and they clearly didn't do that. Nobody was doing that against Colorado State. And this is a thing we're seeing in a lot of recent games. Again, this is probably one of the things I'd say that the Aggies got taken advantage of that kind of has been a bit of a season-long problem. And that's just their post defense, really with anybody not named Great Osobor, because he stands up pretty well in the post. Teams can't take advantage of him. He's pretty solid. you're not really comfortable having your guy go one-on-one with Osobor unless that guy is also a really good post player. And we've seen a few of those guys. Jaden Ledie's one of them. But it's when Joel Scott is going up against Isaac Johnson, or Omar Stanley is going up against Johnson, or Carson Templin or Khalifa Sacco. Basically, again, anybody not named Osobor. Other teams are getting they send out lineups out there where Osobor has to guard somebody else, and then they go to the guy who is matched up against Johnson. That was Joel Scott for a lot of those early, spots where he was matched up against Isaac Johnson or Khalifa Sacco, and they were just attack in the post. That's where they're getting a lot of their layups. Because Isaac Johnson and Khalifa Sacco and even Carson Templin, they're giving up deep post position, and then they're also fouling. And that's where you get kind of frustrated, where you're this late in the season and you're seeing guys who are guarding in the post, and they're giving it, about as much as they can in those situations, but then they're getting up-faked over and over again.
Right.
Every team knows, up-fake this guy.
The discipline's not there.
And it's like, especially with guys like, Johnson and Sacco, you are 7 feet tall, and the guy that is posted up against you is 6'7". You do not need to jump. And it's like when I talk about teams guarding Osobor, straight up make him shoot over you. And this is kind of the difference where, and it's these little differences that can change so much, where with Osobor, he has to shoot over guys, and it's a 3-foot layup or, a 4-foot layup, a little hook shot. That's what he's being forced to do with the double teams and with teams walling up against him. Isaac Johnson, Khalifa Sacco, they're giving up like 1.5-foot or 2-foot hook shots. Deep post position. And there's times where they're, fouling them. And so they're giving him short shots plus a chance at an and one. So they're giving up deep post position, aren't being disciplined in their rim protection. And it's just this combination of bad habits. And again, they're young. Isaac Johnson, he's young. He's not played a whole lot of center. And Khalifa Sacco coming out of the JUCO ranks. And he didn't play much there. So
And Temple's a true freshman.
Yeah, so these are things they're going to have to learn. Osobor has been doing this for 3 years, so he's a little more in the know. And he's obviously, it's harder to physically take advantage of him, where Johnson, Sacco, and Templin are all a bit smaller, or at least not as physically imposing, so they can get pushed around a little bit more. But still, they should be able to stand up to these guys. But because they're not playing discipline, they're not. They're allowing deep post position. That's where the problems with these bigs are right now. It's not about them scoring points. Some of it's about them rebounding, because they can be up and down and rebounding. But so much of it is you're giving opposing offenses easy offense through post-ups. And you can't be doing that, especially with the caliber of post guys that are in the Mountain West, because every team's got 1 or 2 of them.
Right.
And that's the problem. When a team has 2 of them, they can just go to work against the Aggies all day. If you only have 1 of them, you stick Osobor on them, and you go from there. But if you have 2, it's really hard.
Yeah, it's tough. Before we take a break, 9315, right on this topic. Thing I forgot is that pretty much all the backup bigs are really young, so they'll continue to improve. And that's what you hope, is that they will continue to improve and put the work in.
Yeah, that's like when I look at the future for Isaac Johnson, where if he continues to work on all these things, because he makes young player mistakes all the time. And so does Templin. But you see that raw potential. And it's like, yeah, if they get better at these things, they will be high caliber players of their position.
Right, they're getting significant minutes as very young players.
Yeah. So right now,
there's a little bit of pain now,
yeah.
But you hope that it'll yield much better results for them in their positions down the road.
Yeah, and Mason Falstaff isn't immune from his mistakes either.
No, great at home. He really struggles away from the spectrum.
Yeah, so that's the thing. They're making young player mistakes. It sucks that they're making those, because you're trying to win games, but that's what happens when you have to build a team from scratch. You're going to have to play guys who maybe aren't quite as ready as you'd like them to be.
We need to take another time out here in the Full Court Press. Love to get to the comments to keep rolling in. We'll update you on the rest of the games throughout the conference over the weekend and the latest standings in the Mountain West. That's next here on the Full Court Press.
No matter how cold it is outside, you can count on a quality-built, super-efficient York furnace to keep you warm inside. York furnaces provide consistent comfort throughout your home. York furnaces are protected by the strongest warranties available. Call Advanced Heating and Air Conditioning, your local York dealer at 752-7272 to schedule a free evaluation of your system. Advanced Heating will help you save up to 50% in energy costs this season. Online at advancedheating-ac.com.
When life throws a dent in your plans, trust Mako Auto Body Repair to get you back on the road fast. They specialize in collision repair, offering quick service without compromising on quality work. With no out-of-pocket repairs, they'll help you navigate the insurance claims process, making your repair journey hassle-free. Need your ride transported? Mako offers 24/7 towing. Your journey continues with Mako Auto Body and Repair in Logan. Top-notch collision repair, conveniently located on 10th West in Logan.
For more than a century, couples have shopped at S.C. Needham Jewelers. Known for a large selection of beautiful diamonds, we now have both natural and lab-grown diamonds. You are sure to find a diamond engagement ring that will fit your budget. The possibilities today are endless as you select the perfect ring. Show her you'll cherish her forever with a diamond, either natural or lab-grown, from the store where Utah gets engaged. S.C. Needham Jewelers, middle of the block, at the sign of the clock.
More than 80 million Americans depend on AM radio for their news, weather, sports, and a community connection. It's the backbone of the emergency alert system. It's critical that we keep AM radio in cars because when cell and internet services are down, this free emergency service could be your only lifeline. Text AM to 52886 and tell Congress we need AM radio in cars.
Message and data rates may apply. You may receive up to 4 messages a month, and you may text STOP to stop.
This message furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters.
This is Nate Lamson with Valley Office Systems, your home team when local matters. Valley Office Systems is your local provider for all things office, copiers, printers, furniture, and document management. Proudly serving Cache Valley since 2007. Visit valleyofficesystems.com.
The Aggies, the Jazz, the high schools, the full court press on Sports Talk Radio, 106.9 FM, 1390 AM. The Fan.
Welcome back to the full court press. Eric Frandsen and Jason Walker. Trying to make sense of what happened on Saturday for Utah State. Are there any silver linings that we can take from it as Utah State gets ready for San Diego State on Tuesday?
They're 9-4 in conference play. That's a silver lining.
They're still in first place despite their play of the last month. They're still in first place. 2603 texting in. Do you see an issue with Great taking the ball coast to coast after a rebound? It seems he gets a basket every now and then. Most of the time slows the offense. Johnson is 7 foot, but at times plays defense like he's 6'5". It'll be good to see him take a step forward there. It seems the offense is not as strong when the player and ball movement aren't crisp.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing, especially when you have a team that isn't super great at three-pointers, because you have to move the ball a little bit more to take advantage of a scrambling defense. Because if you're not a great three-point shooting team, if you are a great three-point shooting team, we saw this last year, the first guy that's open on the three-point line drills a three-pointer against a closeout. This year's team can't really do that, and so they'll have to drive against a closeout, and then the defense again collapses on that, and then you have to get one or two more passes, and that's where you have to have that more ball movement. And we've seen that from the Aggies a lot this year. I mean, they're averaging like 80 points a game. It's not like they're slouches on offense, even with their bad three-point shooting. You don't need to be an elite three-point shooting team. You just need to have good offensive principles. They've not stuck to those in some of these games. And so that's something they need to figure out as they go down the stretch. As far as some of these other ones, like Osborne taking the ball coast to coast, it's not really a huge problem because usually if he's taking it down, then the other team's probably set up in their transition defense anyway. And so sometimes it's just throw another look at them. Like, hey, holy crap, the 6'8", 260-pound guy is handling the ball on the perimeter. Like, how do we set up our defense for that?
Right. I don't really have a problem with that either. It reminds me, this year's team in some ways reminds me of those teams with Jared Quayle and Ty Wesley, where teams would do everything they could to get the ball out of Quayle's hands. And so Stu Morrill's like, okay, give it to Ty. He'll bring it up the court because he was a good ball handler, had good footwork, and then it frustrated opposing teams like, oh, we've got the solution to slow USU down. And the Aggies are like, no, we'll just have the big guy bring it up.
Yeah.
And Ossobor can do that. I really don't see a problem with that. If he's taking it, and going all the way into the low post with it, we don't really see that often. But ultimately, this offense does work better when multiple guys touch the ball, and if it doesn't just go to one guy and he keeps the ball the whole time.
And especially if he can find a way to isolate somebody on the wing, because we've seen him just face up on the perimeter and drive by a guy and go to the rim. He can do that. So
yeah.
And again, it doesn't happen too much to the point where it's a problem. So I don't really think it's that big of a deal.
Yeah. Johnson, it's too often I think he plays defense with his hands. He gets turned around too quickly.
Yeah, he's jumping in the air, and obviously when you jump in the air on defense, a lot of times you end up jumping forward. It's just a natural way of how you jump. And then obviously with that, he's also bringing his hands down, and you can't, because that's like, if your hands go from straight up to slanted slightly, it does not matter if you got all ball or it didn't even touch the defender, the referee will call that foul. Doesn't matter if it's a foul or not, they will call it.
Yeah, Johnson's had games where he's played very solid defensively.
Yeah, and it's when
but then he has some games where he lapses.
It's when he chest up, hands up, don't give him close position. That's where he's playing his best. And then when he does that and he stays on the ground, he can turn around and grab a rebound. Because, again, the man is 7 foot tall, and I don't know if there's been too many players on the floor this season that have been taller than him. Like, have the Aggies actually faced a guy who's taller than Isaac Johnson? Off the top of my head, I think
probably
Santa Clara might have had one, I think.
Yeah, I don't know if they've faced anybody with a legitimate 7-footer on the court.
So it's like he doesn't need to play super vertical as in jumping. He needs to use the fact that he is the most vertical player on the court and just use that to his advantage. Now, I don't know, maybe I'm just talking out of my butt here and I don't know much about basketball, but that just seems to me like it would, and what I've watched other players do. Seems like it would work.
0366, Dear Aggie fans, we are a pathetic bunch. The Ags were picked to finish dead last, the bottom of the list. Here we are. That's actually not true. But they're
close
enough.
It was ninth
out of 11th, but I get the point. Here we are, tied for the top of the conference, nationally ranked for many weeks, and yet all we do is complain. I'm not going to use one of those words. Complain and couch coach. Why can't we just enjoy this group and be happy? Ultimately, I guess that's what sports talk radio is made for. I'm as bad as anyone.
Well, and see, that's why I've interjected. I've talked about the areas where they've been bad in, but I've tried to emphasize that this team is good. Led into the segment saying, hey, they're 9-4. That's the silver lining. Hey, this team's still going to make the NCAA tournament, most barring a complete meltdown. This team's still battling for a Mountain West championship. After a loss, you're going to be critical of a team. But 0366 makes the great point that, hey, look, realize where this team is, where they've come from. The frustration is boiling from the expectations being low, then super high, and suddenly we're feeling like we have to bring them down again. So that's where whenever you feel like the team's going down, frustration is going to be there. But you talk about silver lining. The silver lining is, hey, you're tied for first place in the conference. You're probably going to go to the NCAA tournament. A lot of these guys are probably coming back for next year. We talk about them being young. They're going to be back next year and better. Darius Brown is probably going to be the only guy that you lose from the main rotation. Other than that, you're bringing in some very promising freshmen, and you're going to have guys that have improved. There's ways that Ossobor, I think, can very much improve for next year. Little ways, but little ways that would make him almost impossible to guard. And we can get into those maybe in the offseason, but there's still a lot to be positive about this team. But that does not excuse them from the criticism of what happens when you get blown out by 20.
When you lose by 20 points on the road, and when you're at the top of the conference standings, and you lose like that, you will be subject to some criticism.
And
we have every Aggie fans have every right to be concerned with what happened on Saturday.
And trust me, when I was sitting in practice today, Danny Sprinkle was not talking to the team saying, hey, you guys are tied for first place.
Remember when we were picked 9th? Golly gee, we're doing a great job there, fellas.
They're getting after the team and making sure they're always.
They know
better.
they're good enough to be the top team.
Yeah,
that's what they're chasing.
Yeah, and so that's the two sides of the coin. 0366 is not wrong, at all. Well, you shouldn't say not wrong, but you need to recognize that there is still a lot of positives, but that there is criticism to be had.
All is not lost, but it's tough loss by 20, and you got another really, really, really good team in the house tomorrow. They got to find a way to get their crap together.
Yeah.
Before we take another time out here, one other silver lining, which we haven't mentioned yet. How about the play of Jackson off the bench?
Yeah,
10 points, 2 3-pointers, and another bucket. Providing some offense off the bench, which Utah State has needed at the guard play from time to time.
Yeah, I think he's got a bright future because he's a scorer. He came in from the Division II averaging, what was he averaging? 18 points? I forget exactly what it was. It's been a while to tell you. But he was a good shooter, good scorer. He's quick. He's athletic for his size. He's not a great leaper, but he's quick. So, but he's also only a sophomore. So, and he's a big he's a guy that they're gonna have to lean on next year when Darius Brown is gone. Yeah. He's a different type of player, but you can see the scoring there because whenever he's come in and played minutes and gotten shots up, he's scoring in that close to double figures, and maybe only playing 10 minutes.
Right, and providing some outside shooting, which they've needed.
Yeah, this team really needs.
All right, another quick time out here in the Full Court Press. When we come back, obviously more of your texts, more of your reactions, 435-339-0321.
Experiencing asthma, allergies, or hearing problems? Turn to Cache Valley Ear, Nose, and Throat, located in Providence and the Three Peaks Medical Plaza in North Logan. Cache Valley Ear, Nose, and Throat have decades of ear, nose, and throat experience for children and adults. Doctors Benyon, Blotter, and Robinette provide cutting-edge techniques ensuring you the highest quality of service and results. Go to CacheValleyENT.com. That's CacheValleyENT.com for appointments and details. Most insurance products, including SelectMed, are accepted. Cache Valley Ear, Nose, and Throat, helping you live the life you deserve.
Your search for copiers and printers should include Les Olson IT. There you'll find sharp copiers with powerful technology giving you one-click scanning to your office software programs. You'll find reliable HP printers that help your work groups get more done. And you'll find Ricoh graphic systems for professional quality prints. You'll find local supply delivery and peace of mind knowing you're covered by the best service in the industry.
Les Olson IT.
Spice up the winter blues with a delicious outing to Logan's first family-friendly brew pub, Prodigy Brewing. Excited to announce their success at the 2023 Tasting Alliance World Beer Competition. Prodigy Brewing won 3 of the highest medals. Prodigy invites you to try their juicy burgers, sizzling wood-fired pizzas, tasty salads, bar bites, and kids menu. Prodigy Brewing is in downtown Logan, proud to be one of Logan's vibrant downtown food and beverage destinations. Prodigy Brewing, extraordinary service and family-friendly.
Want to set yourself apart from the competition? The Leadership MBA at Utah State University will help you lead companies and drive change in your organization. You can attend in person in Logan on Thursday evenings or take an interactive online class. Complete your MBA in as little as a year. Apply before March 1st to be considered for summer semester. Contact the MBA office for a waiver of the $55 application fee. Learn more at utahstatemba.com. That's utahstatemba.com.
Following the local teams, it's the Full Court Press with Eric Frandsen and Jason Walker.
And Napa, they feature all the best brands like Croyle, Amsoil, Schaefer, BG, and Seafoam. You can find the parts and the oil that you need to keep your cars and equipment running smoothly. They got 5 different locations between Preston and Providence. That's Napa Auto Parts. So, yeah, Utah State losing to Colorado State over the weekend, 75-55, the Aggies' worst loss of the season. 9315 texting in, if you get complacent as fans and just settle, then you turn into San Jose State in basketball, a team headed now where real estate.
I feel like you end up more like the Utah Jazz fans where and I don't mean to say this to disparage Jazz fans because I am one, but with the Rudy Gobert era and Rudy Gobert, Donovan Mitchell, where you're good but not good enough to do anything in the postseason, where there's fans that are like, okay, we're winning, and why would we want to change anything? Because we're winning. But there's this ultimate goal of you're trying to be the best possible. And that's where you can end up getting really angry at the team. And you end up like the Bucks, who fire their coach mid-season when they're in like first place in the conference. Like, and I'm not advocating for that because I call that move stupid. And now Doc Rivers is like 3-7 as the head coach of the Bucks or something like that. It's looking like a spectacular move, but it's like you almost get more angry with the team the better they get, because those expectations go up, and the stress gets higher because the stakes feel higher. Because instead of talking about, oh, maybe we'll make the playoffs and have a fun little end of the season, maybe get swept or whatnot, it's you're fighting for the biggest prizes, and there's a lot more emotion tied into it. And so that's where fans are probably more angry at I shouldn't say they're angry at the team, but they can get more frustrated after these losses than they would if this team had 20. If this was their 20th loss, they wouldn't be upset. They'd just be like, oh, another loss. It's like with women's basketball. Everyone's like, oh, it's another loss.
Yeah, it's another loss.
They're not angry at or frustrated with the women's basketball team.
That's where
the
expectations are.
Yeah.
Hey, stick around. We got Utah State softball coming in next hour. Head coach Todd Judge joining us in studio.
I'm Dan Patrick, and this is Above the Noise. Throughout NFL history, there are plenty of examples you can point to that proves when it comes to evaluating NFL quarterbacks, not only us fans are clueless, but teams are as well. Ryan Leaf was in the discussion to be selected over Peyton Manning throughout the entire draft process. Jamarcus Russell, he was a can't-miss prospect out of LSU. Now, we all know there is no such thing. But if you need a reminder, the final hours of the NFL's regular season, a perfect example of that. In 2017, Mitch Trubisky looked to be the clear-cut number one quarterback prospect coming into the draft. Meanwhile, Patrick Mahomes appeared to have plenty of risk. He was a gunslinger coming out of Texas Tech. Mahomes just finished securing his third Super Bowl and another MVP, while Mitchell Trubisky was officially let go by the Steelers. So while we continue to approach draft season, just remember, no matter how much hype is surrounding a prospect, there's always a chance he could be a bust. I'm Dan Patrick, and this is Above the Noise.